Hey there friends and enemies, Joker here again, and today I want to go over the 5 mythic cards I most want to add to my collection from the Avatar The Last Airbender set in Magic the Gathering. I've already done this for the other rarities. If you missed those videos, definitely check them out. But there are so many good cards in this set. Even though there aren't a lot of mythics, I think there are some really tough choices to be made here, and I had a hard time narrowing it down. Like some of these, like the Legend of Kuruk, I think could be really good, but it just doesn't quite make the list, and I think that applies to pretty much the majority of the mythics, which shows how fun and strong this set ultimately is. Now, I'm not going to go over any of the cards that I would use as commanders, and keep in mind, I mostly do play commander as well as some draft, so if the cards that I like don't apply to the format that you mostly play, keep that in mind. But anyway, let's start off with the Badgermole Cub. I think this is one that everyone pointed to right away as soon as it dropped, and we're like, this thing is going to be usable in so many different places. For 1 colorless and a green, you cast a 2/2 Badgermole creature. When this creature enters Earthbend 1, target land you control becomes a 0/0 creature. With haste, that's still a land. Put a +1/+1 counter on it. When it dies or is exiled, return it to the battlefield to tap. That's kind of insane. But also, whenever you tap a creature for mana, add an additional green mana as well. And I think that combination can spiral very quickly in a lot of different formats. If you think about it in like standard, where you're trying to play a lot of fast mana, get some things out and combinations out early, I think this is one that could be very scary, especially because you could kind of build a land deck, essentially, maybe not land full, but essentially a land creature deck, for example, and it could be very effective. So there's a lot of different ways to utilize this. I think this is going to be the most widely sought after of all the mythics. Might not necessarily be my favorite though, it's just one that I can see why it's going to be so incredibly useful. But then we move on to one that I think is going to be one of my favorites, and I think it's one of those cards that thematically is just so perfect. It is expensive, and Sozin's Comet is just one of those cards that I'll find a way to shoehorn into a lot of my red decks. For 2 red mana and 3 colorless, you cast a sorcery that says each creature you control gains Firebending 5 until end of turn. So whenever it attacks, add 5 red mana. Its mana only lasts until end of combat. You can foretell this for 2 colorless and a red. During your turn, you may pay 2 colorless and exile this card from your hand face down. Cast it on a later turn for its foretell cost. So essentially, that'll cost you only the 5 mana, but only 1 of them being red. So if you're short on that, if you're playing a multicolor deck, that is something to keep in mind. Now, okay, the reason I like this, red has so many decks where this would be absolutely insane. And you think about it in a commander deck, you're playing a goblin deck, for example, and you're super wide. You have 20 goblins on the field at a certain time, but you don't know how to make use of them. You can just essentially flood the battlefield, use them all, cast an instant with all the mana you've generated to do a ton of damage potentially. You could copy some of those spells. You can even use something like, there are ways in this set to carry over your mana as well and keep it beyond just the combat phase. So I think this thing is going to be insane. Again, it is quite expensive. It isn't going to be viable in every deck. But I think pulling this off and being able to potentially one-shot some of your enemies in Commander would be worth using this card, in my opinion. And that's what I look forward to. Again, I'm not one who kind of worries. Like, I don't play CEDH or anything like that. So I don't know if this is going to be viable at the top end, but I know in like more casual Commander, there's going to be ways to make use of this, and it's going to be extremely fun. From there, we move on to a much different card, the Legend of Kuruk. This one is a saga at the start for 2 colorless and 2 blue. The first 2 of the lore counters, you scry 2, then draw a card. Nothing too crazy there. On the 3rd one, you exile the saga, then return it transformed onto the battlefield under your control. So Avatar Kuruk is a 4/3 legendary creature avatar. Whenever you cast a spell, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token. With this token, can't block or be blocked by non-spirit creatures. That's kind of insane, and then you add to it Exhaust Waterbend 20 and take an extra turn after this one. While paying a Waterbend cost, you can tap artifacts and creatures to help. Each one pays for one colorless mana. Activate each Exhaust ability only once. Now, there are multiple ways you could make this actually go crazy. First and foremost, if you have a deck that's got a lot of tokens, especially like you look at Thopters with blue, you can do a blue-white deck, you could do a spirit deck, you can do a lot of those types of combinations in order to really throw out a ton of creatures to tap, a ton of artifacts to tap for this Waterbend. Yes, it exhausts and it can only be used once unless you're able to copy this creature somehow and make it a non-legendary, but I do think that taking an extra turn is worth it and can be kind of insane. So ultimately, I do feel like this is the kind of card that requires a lot of setup. It's not going to be perfect in every deck. It's not going to be one that is just universally used, but much like Sozin's Comet, if you're able to pull off this combination, it can feel very rewarding and ultimately be a game ender if you play your cards right. So I do think that's one of the reasons why I like this card so much. I do like cards that are ultimately able to sway the tide and just kind of turn the game on its head. So next up, we're going to have the Walls of Bossing Say. This one is one of my favorites, mostly because I have been itching to build an Arcades deck for some time. I already have him in my collection, and I was waiting just to see if this is the type of card that is going to put me over the top with that deck. It's going to really make that deck sing, and I think it looks awesome. So it is an 8 mana, very expensive legendary artifact creature wall that has Defender and other permanents you control have indestructible. It is a 0/30. Some things to keep in mind: it does not have indestructible itself, so you're going to have to keep it alive. Obviously, doing damage to it is not going to really work trying to destroy this thing, but if you are able to remove it through like destroy target creature spells, I think that is going to be something that this is going to be a massive target. However, there's a reason for that, and that's because if you use Arcades and allow it to attack, allow it to use its defense in order to be its power, I think it's going to be absolutely crazy. And so because of that, I think, again, much like my last two cards that I talked about, this is one that again takes a lot of setup, will require some finagling in order to make it work properly, but once you do, it is going to be so much fun and basically unstoppable if you are able to get this thing attacking. At 30 damage, you are dang near killing one of your opponents, or if you're not in Commander, if you're in another format and you're able to somehow get this thing on the field, then yeah, it's going to absolutely wipe the floor. So really interesting card. One of those totally unique options that I think is a perfect fit for a Commander deck that you can build around. Finally, we have the last card, and I think red really cooks in this set. Like, I think it's very, very good. This is Fated Firepower. Yes, it is expensive for 3 red and then X. It is an enchantment that has flash. That is very important. So being able to cast it whenever is massive. We talked about Sozin's Comet already. This is one you can use. So this enchantment enters with X fire counters on it. If a source you control would deal damage to an opponent or permanent, or a permanent opponent controls, it deals that much damage plus an amount of damage equal to the number of fire counters on this enchantment instead. So again, you have 20 goblins. You attack with them. Now all of a sudden, you have all of that extra mana. You're able to throw out Fated Firepower, and you are dealing just way more damage. Like if you put every single mana, say, for example, if you have 10 goblins that attack, right, and they all gain you 5 extra mana, that is that's 50 mana. That's kind of nuts. That's like that's overkill for sure. But in that scenario, you have the 10 goblins, right? You generate all that mana. You are able to add 47 fire counters to this thing. and put it out immediately with Flash. So just insane combinations, in my opinion, of what you can do with some of these spells. And so that's, I will put Sozin Comet and Faded Firepower in a deck together for sure and see how it all works out. So let me know what you guys think though in the comments down below. Are there any cards that I put in my top 5 that you think don't belong, or are there any cards that you think I am sleeping on that absolutely would be excellent choices to add to the collection? Obviously, as somebody who likes to experiment, I will be trying to get as many of these as possible, but I'm just curious to see what the general consensus is on which cards people are looking forward to. I have one more video on my top 5 commanders coming out in the next day or so, and then after that I'm really going to dive into the set and start playing with it and seeing how it goes. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like the video as always, comment, subscribe, have a good one, and I'll catch you all later.